Hello, today let's talk about FiiO's recently announced top model in their portable digital to analog converters lineup. And traditionally for FiiO, first I see specs after the review, some features listed, and then I'm starting guessing the price, and actually it usually appears to be lower than I've expect. So it's a portable digital to analog converter. It's built with dual CS43198 digital to analog converters. FiiO used Cyrus Logic chips in their previous models, but it was 43131, so it's more advanced model in Cyrus Logic lineup. It supports high resolution, like 768 kilohertz, 32 bits, DSD 256 if I remember right, and luckily for me there is no MQA support here because it's my subjective opinion, but I don't want to pay for this format. Also, it's pretty powerful. It delivers up to 265 milliwatts for 32 ohms load from the balanced output per channel and about 54 milliwatts for 300 ohms load. It's not like tons of power, but it's a pretty good amount for vast majority of headphones, including full-size models. Not some tough to drive planars, but anyway pretty good power. From single-ended output it's about 122 milliwatts if I remember right for 32 ohms load. It has small OLED screen, menu, independent volume control, replaceable USB cable, so in all aspects it should have been costing like at least $150 or so, but its current price $130, which in my opinion is pretty good. So let's have a closer look. What I don't like here actually is that it looks like FiiO decided to go to the new style of package. I like the previous one and I'm not used to the new one. We'll see what it will be for the next products, but besides of my grumpiness, it's a pretty nice package with interesting combination of foiled part and regular cardboard and even some texturing here, so looks really attractive. Of course it was wrapped in plastic to ensure that no one touch your digital to analog converter before you. Underneath we're getting the plastic tray, manual, device itself, and box with accessories. And here we are getting, so that's probably some warranty card, USB type A to USB type C adapter if you want to use it with your laptop, short USB type C cable for Android devices, and surprisingly, but you getting lightning to USB type C, that meaning that you will also be able to use it with iOS device without buying extra cables or caring about that, so it's a really nice touch in my opinion. So, in terms of design, it reminds all other FiiO's models like KA3, KA2, KA1. First and second have non-replaceable cables, but third one has replaceable. But there is a slight difference. So here is the OLED screen, we'll show it to you a bit later. On the back panel we also got glass covered part. I wonder, do we need to buy some protector or no? And I'm not sure will it be visible on camera, but there is a really interesting pattern here. It reminds a bit of flower or some honeycombs or something like that. Probably it should be visible, but not sure here, but looks pretty attractive. And logic is simple, you plug your source here, you plug your headphones here, and it's working. And here is multifunctional button and two buttons that can change volume and navigate tracks. There are two schemas of control, but let's talk about controlling in the next part of the video. Traditionally for FiiO recent products it has a companion app, and also traditionally it can be either FiiO Control separate application or built-in version of FiiO Control that is present in the FiiO Music application. It's for Android, not sure about iOS. Maybe on iOS it can be limited by Apple. So here how it looks on FiiO M17. Traditionally product photo, model name, sampling rate and firmware version. So firmware versions should be upgradable via USB, but I suspect that as usual upgrade will be only available for Windows. Also here settings, but in the settings you can just reset settings for the device itself. So here you can activate SPDIF out, and in this case 3.5mm will be working as a SPDIF, so you can use it even as a converter from USB to SPDIF. Not sure if it will be a common scenario, but some people will be happy with that. Also you can activate hardware mute switch and introduce amount of popping when sampling rate change, for example, but it can introduce slight pop on tracks change and on tracks navigation and so on. Also you can rotate OLED display 180 degrees depending on what orientation you will use the device. There is no, of course, orientation sensor, so you just do it via this control app or via the menu. You can select do you need 120 steps in volume control or 60. Also you can select low and high gain. You can select for the digital tonal converter class AB or class H. In the class H it consumes a bit less power, but I did some tests. I haven't heard big difference in sound. In the AB mode it seems to be showing a bit better control on mids, but I can't say that difference is huge. Also control buttons mode. In A mode single press is changing the tracks and long presses single presses changes volume and long press navigate tracks. In the B mode it will be vice versa. Also you can set screen power timer and set screen brightness. Also here you can select low pass filter, device volume and channel balance. And also here you can see the manual for this device. Actually, let's first close the control application and reconnect the device to move it out of control mode. So I connect it, and here it's on screen. On the record, on the video it traditionally looks flickering like many LED screens, but in practice of course it's not that flickery. And by short press of button is play pause. By long pressing you can get to the menu. So gain, low or high, filter, volume control, DAC mode, SPDIF out, balance adjustment, this depopping with built-in hardware, also screen brightness, but it just works in the opposite way, and on 10 it's really bright. So let's move it to 5 and rotate display, so it rotates it upside down, time to show the display, and this key mode, firmware version, and then it goes back to the start of the menu. As you can see, all functions are duplicated from the control app and from the device itself, so even without control app you doesn't lose anything. Buttons have nice click, and that makes control even more pleasant. And of course about the sound, for demonstration purpose I built improvised setup with KA5. it's hard to pronounce it correctly without saying just KA5, but KA5 is the FiiO's desktop offer, so KA5, not super easy to pronounce, but anyway. And Unique Melody Mask Mark II to make picture a bit fancier, and FiiO's M17 as a transport. Of course, there is no sense in connecting this player to this digital to analog converter in practical use, but it's here, so I just can show you some tracks, so it will be okay for demonstration. Of course, it will be okay for any purpose, but in general it sounds much better than KA5 itself. So, in terms of sound, for the KA5, FiiO continues their basic idea of their digital to analog converters. Sound natural, pretty technical, but with a bit of added dynamics and emotion, so it's not sounding too analytical. And with a bit of added, actually it's not even weight, I'd say that it's a firmness. And in general, you're getting a really balanced sound with great control and great definition, at the same time not sounding too sharp or too analytical, and actually I like this kind of tuning. So, bass goes really deep, probably to maximum possible depth for earphones and headphones. It offers great control, good amount of texturing, and really fast kicking impactful attacks. It's not trying to add any weight, so if you used two sources that make sound bit more warmer or bit more weightier, it's not your choice. And at the same time, it's pretty critical for the quality of records. I will elaborate more about that when we talk about the mids, but for the bass it's also true. If a track has good weight for low frequencies, it will deliver them, but it won't add anything from itself. And it has a surprisingly good level of representing, rendering that small nuances and details. So in this aspect it's also really enjoyable with some realistic instruments, and that's actually why I selected few interesting examples. So first one is from the new high-res sampler by HD Tracks. Really recommend you these samplers as a source of good music, and they are available on the HD Tracks for free, so you can enjoy a lot of their artists and then purchase their full albums or compilations or so on. So it's a collective called Buzz Brass, and it hosts the planet Mars, the bringer of war. And actually it even starts the way you understand. It offers that solid low frequency sound. It reminds me some stories about organs with low notes that made people scared. Don't be confused. Not to be confused with brown note from South Park, but deeper layers of bass. Of course, not ones that can be rendered by earphones, but that we perceive in real life by our body definitely can bring people to the state of shock and confusion. Here we're getting not that type of bass, but it's really foundational, really deep, and of course it's a brass collective, so you're getting a lot of different instruments with low frequency resonance, and it renders them really nicely. Actually, to overcome it in this small nuances rendering, you'll have to pay like, I don't know, 5 times more in World of Players or so. And the second example, it's another record that I really like. It's Snarky Puppy Beep Box. This track also has a lot of deep bass, but on top of that a lot of really interesting instruments that goes to the middle frequencies, to the treble, and all that builds really great contrast and really great perception of this track, so you're getting a super solid foundation for all tracks that you're going to listen to. And it's not probably surprising because it has a really decent amplification. of course by the scale of these tiny digital to analog converters. And I mean good amplification not only in terms of power delivered, it's not the maximum one, but in terms of that it managed to squeeze really stable source of current from the device that it's plugged to, so it really has no problems with delivering punches, of course, unless the device will be really weak. Mids are neutral, technical, with a slight focus on the micro contrast, but not too much. You'll get that audiophilic sense of great detalization, but at the same time it won't go sounding to the sharp and analytical side of things. You'll get a bit of highlighted macro dynamics, but at the same time you won't get additional weight, you won't get boosted emotions, so it's also really dependent on the quality of records too. So if a record has it, you'll get perfect distribution of weight, you'll get engaging emotions in the vocal, in the instruments, and you'll get that spiciness on the upper mids when it's necessary, but that should be present in the record. So it's really critical and sometimes demanding for search for better mastering, better record, and so on. In terms of staging, it's also really good. It builds a pretty viable stage, not the huge one, but above average in width and in depth, with really good instrument separation. In width, depth is slightly smaller than width, but still with good layering, so you'll get that sense of immersion into the stage, especially with some good earphones. And examples for the mid frequencies. First one, it's Uncreation by Swanö. I hope that O with two dots sounds Swanö, really great project, like I don't remember the year, but if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere from the 90s. Good mix of synthesizer music and like not brutal but brutalish metal, mainly because of vocal. Nice catchy tunes, really good album in general, so I like it and can recommend if you like heavy music. Not like in terms of true heavy music like brutal death metal or true Nordic black or something like that, but if you like harsh vocal but catchy tunes, and this album requires nice resolution to sound, so you can like separate all instruments from another. But at the same time, here you'll definitely hear the issues with recording, because it was 90s and even then Swanö was not recording everything perfectly, but still really enjoyable experience. And another track with more attention to details and record quality, it's David Bowie's Fashion, almost close to electronic music, to some disco, but with lot of interesting nuances and details, like slight percussion that appears at the left channel, samples that appears in both in left and right channels, and of course Bowie's vocal. It's really processed, but still sounds really rich and fancy. So really good experience with listening this track on a natural, pretty resolving device. And treble, it's energetic, it's not trying to hide it, it's not over boosting it or over highlighted, but it's definitely represented with a good energy. So if you're really sensitive to the treble area, either you have to find some softer earphones or consider some other device, because it's not making sound softer or more comfortable. It's not making it more sharper, at least to my ears, but not softening the sound. Really good extension, of course nice basic overtone saturation, almost no layering, but it's pretty expectable for the portable device. If you need rich audiophilic layering, it's to some more fancy setups, but anyway, nice performance of the treble, good amount of percussions and overtones for the high frequency instruments, and overall good sense of airiness. Really well balanced attacks and decays, so treble sounds also really well. And examples. First one, it's actually I had problems with O with 2 dots, and that A with small circle on top, it's absolutely I don't know, so I will pretend that there is no this circle, but it definitely means something. Blågutten by Hoff Ensemble, it's a typical acoustic jazz record, but why I like Hoff Ensemble and why I keep it in my media library, as I'm not a huge fan of super relaxed jazz music, is because it's recorded really perfectly and it immerses you into the atmosphere of concert in some not huge room, really intimate, really crazy detailed for each instrument, flawlessly performed, really great recorded. I think that quality of record is just another instrument in this ensemble, and all that gives you great sense of immersion. Of course, this digital tonal converter really lacks layering to represent this track fully, but thanks to the technical means and good stage and overall nice treble performance, you're still getting the basic idea, and even if you're not 100% immersed into atmosphere, you're getting like, I don't know, 85% of that. Of course, I'm kidding, it's not, it can be measured by percent. And the last example, it's Ivan Tkalenko, Ukrainian musician who plays bandura. It's Ukrainian traditional instrument, really saturated with overtones, with rich details. It's just a big wood instrument with a lot of strings, and that means the rich resonance of strings and wooden body of this instrument. And Ivan also adds here great accompaniment like violins, drums, some bass that appears and disappears. Still, bandura is on the first place, but adding that accompaniment makes it not as actually, I'm not sure what word I can use it instead of dull, but it makes it more easier to experience than bandura alone, and it gives you really record quality is pretty nice, so it's a really good audiophilic experience. When I'm saying about great treble performance, usually this is one of the albums I'm using to test. You can find some Ivan works on the YouTube. It's pretty impressive, and this device is also lacking a bit of layering, but still sounds really pleasant with good portraying of the basic overtones of bandura. And rest of small technical details in terms of compatibility, in terms of pairing, it's pretty universal. Of course, it won't drive some inefficient planar models or something with super high impedance, but vast majority of headphones it will drive nicely. I even tried with Meze Lyric, it was okay in terms of power, absolutely okay, but of course Lyric requires something more technical and performance than that. But for example with 109 Meze it was a really pleasant experience. And on the other end, it's pretty quiet with in-ear monitors. Maybe with super sensitive earphones in the absolute silence you will hear a bit of background noise, but when music plays it delivers a pretty good level of black background. As for interference with smartphones, I can share only my experience because it really depends on smartphone you use and frequency band and many receiving quality. So my smartphone is mainly on the LTE. Few days ago, after Russia's shelling, there was a local power outage in my micro district, and few cellular bands were down and smartphone like downgraded to even not Edge. If I remember right, it was called GPRS, it was on GPRS, and when it was trying to connect internet, it was useless because speed is abysmally low. I've heard a bit of interference, but on the Edge and 3G and LTE I haven't heard that, so most probably you won't experience that too, but I can't guarantee, of course. Speaking about the comparisons, it's a noticeable step forward comparing to KA3, not a huge, but noticeable. Really better control in terms of low frequencies and slightly better dynamics on the mid frequencies, so sounds a bit more rich and a bit more saturated. And comparing with other companies, I don't have its like main rival that everyone is comparing, DC04 Pro. It will appear in Ukraine, but most probably later. And DC03 from single-ended output, DC03 is like more forward in terms of highlighting emotions. This one a bit less emotional, more close to what is in the record. But from the balanced output you're getting better control, better dynamics, so it's not a fair comparison. Heidi's digital tonal converters, they go deeper to the micro detalization and sounds more analytical, what we also got. Hibi FC04 that I have tested some time ago, I'm not sure, probably it was FC4. It was more natural without boosting dynamics like this one. It was more on the natural side, but not analytical type of neutrality like totally balanced one. And maybe I forgot some. Oh, Shanling, of course, but Shanling, like, it's different representation. Shanling, it's often about added weight and more warmer representation. Xduo, what was that? It was XD2 balanced or Pro, sorry, forgot to name, but it was reviewed not so long ago, and I like it a bit better on the mid frequencies, but I like here treble and bass bit more. They are slightly better controlled, and that's the main difference. So in general, really good device with tons of extra features and still a reasonable price and great sound. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.